Toastmasters, District 47, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is great to see you all dialing in from, well, in this case, from Brisbane, Australia. As you can see behind me, welcome. It's good to see you all. It's a bright Thursday morning over here on the other side of the world. It's good to see you all. And as you can tell, that was one of my favorite songs because it captures so much of what Toastmasters is about. It's not about being perfect. It's about just getting in and having a go and falling over, picking ourselves up and just keeping at it time and time again. And that in some ways captures our pathways journey too. We jump in, we have a go. We may not do a perfect job, and that's okay because it's all about the learning that we pick up along the journey. So with that, my name is Mark Snow. I am a Toastmaster from Australia, and it's good to be here with you today. Today, we are going to be going through pathways and how to make the most of our program so that you can take your journey in Toastmasters and in life to even greater heights, because that's what we're all here for. We're going to tackle this in a few different ways. We're going to start first and foremost by just looking at some of the features, the benefits, the value of pathways. We're going to jump into how to get started, how to select a path, and how to make that process just a little bit easier for everyone. We're going to jump then into some tips for clubs on how to increase engagement and boost uptake of the program. We're going to jump into have a look at some resources that are available to help you along the way. And then we're going to work through just an overview of the Pathways DTM and the Mentor program. And as Jane said, we have a Q&A at the end. So with that, feel free to post questions into the chat as we go. There's plenty, I'm sure, to talk about as we work through this, but then, yeah, at the end, we'll have plenty of time. So the first thing I want to do though, and before we get started is I want to learn a little bit more about you, because you are the most important people on this call today, not me. It's your journey we're interested in. And what I want to know is, why did you come to Toastmasters? There's this crazy thing called Toastmasters. What do you want to get out of it? What sort of skills, what sort of experience, what sort of help do you want Toastmasters to provide to your life? Just plug it into the chat. Just go nuts. And just type in, why did you come to Toastmasters? What are you wanting to get out of it? Because I really want to sort of get a sense of, well, okay, why are we all here? Like, why is the most important question? So pick up the chat and go ballistic. There we go. Meeting people, confidence in speaking. It's all starting to come through. Networking, love it. Self-development, leadership. I like it. I'm seeing confidence. I'm seeing a lot of themes coming through. And to get out of, oh, perfect. Eric, excellent. To get out of your comfort zone. Continuous improvement. Exactly. And so you can see, even just from the posts that are coming through, we all come to Toastmasters for very different reasons. Whether it's personal goals, professional goals, communication goals, leadership goals, whether we just want to build our self-confidence or our personal leadership, we just want to meet people and learn how to do that better. There are so many different reasons that we come to Toastmasters. And the great thing about Toastmasters is that we can accommodate all of those goals. It hasn't changed with Pathways. No matter what your goals are, Pathways and Toastmasters can help you get there. And we're going to dive in today into how that can happen. So let's have a look at it. So as I said, Pathways, we have lots of variety. We've got lots of range. Now, as someone who's earned DTM awards in the old program, the traditional program, and Pathways, it's interesting comparing the two. So what I found as a member in the traditional program was we had our manuals, and we had a lot of very public speaking, communication focused topics. And then as you worked through the competent communicator and worked into the advanced level of the manuals, it started, in my mind, at least for me, to get a little bit repetitive. You were sort of doing speeches over and over, and it wasn't necessarily connected to what we were doing in the real world. There was a lot of doing almost speeches for speech's sake. Whereas we come across now to Pathways, and it is our education program. There is no traditional program anymore. But what I've found in Pathways is that the whole premise of the program is about applying what it is that we learn. What I admire and really get so much out of in terms of Pathways is that every project follows pretty much the same sort of philosophy, which is read the material, practice the skill, deliver a presentation about your experience, and then take the feedback and reflect, and then do it all over again with a new project and a new set of skills. And so that cycle of read, do, present, reflect is quite powerful. It's the same sort of process that we use when we're at a gym, if we're in any sort of environment where we're getting feedback. It's a very powerful cycle. And if you do that over and over and over again, eventually you get better and better and better and better, which is really cool. So I found, again, doing the two, that because Pathways is focused very much on the more applied aspects, it's not just coming into a club all the time and just doing Toastmasters in the club. Pathways allows us to really take our projects and take our learning outside of the club environment. Every single project, except for maybe a couple, can be conducted and can be undertaken outside of your club meetings. And that's quite useful because it's giving us that chance and that opportunity to really apply. Previously, there were restrictions on how many speeches you could give outside the club. Now there are no restrictions. You can give your presentations, you can do your projects outside the club environment, and it works really well. For example, I'm a member of a corporate club here in Australia, in Brisbane, and some of my fellow members are part of my team. So whenever I'm giving a work presentation or I'm leading a team project or something, I drag one of my fellow members along and I'm just like, cool, here's an evaluation form. Give it to me, give me all that feedback. And that's good because it just helps me with receiving feedback and learning in the real world situation. Because one thing I did notice was, from all of the reasons that we came to Toastmasters, not one person wrote, because I wanted to be a better Toastmaster. That's not why we come to Toastmasters. We come to Toastmasters because we want to be better people. We want to be better leaders, better speakers, better communicators, just better people, full stop. And the more we can connect what we're doing in the Toastmasters program to the real world, the better, because that's where we're going to be using those skills that we learn. So those are really sort of the key elements of what Pathways offers. We have a huge range of projects. So for an experienced member, where we may have run through pretty much everything we might have wanted to do in the traditional program, there's now a whole lot of other options. So it's learning new skills, it's stretching ourselves in new directions. We've got projects on event management, on emotional intelligence, cultural awareness, social media. There's a whole raft of new skills to jump into. And like the song at the very beginning, it's just about trying everything. And Toastmasters and Pathways provides us with a bit of a smorgasbord, and we can just like, I'll have a bit of that and I'll have a bit of that. If I want to go the turkey and the ham and the lamb and the pork over here, that's fine. If I want to hit the dessert bar and try everything that's in the dessert bar, I'm going to do that. I've got that choice. Whereas people, can pick and choose whatever it is to help them where they want to go. So that's Pathways. It's really flexible. And no matter whether you've got community goals or you've got personal goals, professional goals, it can take you in many different directions. So for example, a friend of mine used Pathways and the projects and the skills that she learned in that to help work with a local women's shelter. And she used the skills and the learning from that to help rebuild that organization so it could help more disadvantaged women in the Philippines. And I'm still in awe of how she used that knowledge to pour it back into her community and do some real good with that. On the flip side, I've got members that have been using Pathways to develop their interpersonal communication skills. They are, terrible introverts, and they recognize that they need to get out and learn how to connect more with people one-on-one, not just in a big environment sort of like this. And they're doing that really well. They're picking projects that allow them to work with other people and really focus on those interpersonal communication skills. And they're having a ball. Like, they are becoming more and more confident every time I see them. And it's amazing to experience and to watch. And then we have professional goals too. People who want to take their Toastmasters experience, their Pathways learnings, and apply that to their career. And one of the examples for me was, I'm an accountant. We're not known for being terribly funny or being terribly, out there and exciting, but that's accountants for you. And so my role in my work is as a financial analyst. But I was called on at fairly short notice to fill in for one of my colleagues who had come down very ill, and to take on her role of organising a large series of workshops around my state of Queensland, which, for those of you that know geography, is about 4 times the size of Texas. It's not a small place. And so the first thing I did was I pulled the Manage Events Successfully project off of Pathways, and I started reading through all of that, used the templates and the materials. And I like it, Jane, accountants do rule the world, or at least, we own it. And so using the tools and the templates from the Pathways project, I was able to basically take on this project, this organizing all these events, and they went off really well. And that's with no event management experience before, apart from what we have through Toastmasters. So there are different ways that you can use the skills. It's just knowing where to find those projects and knowing how to align yourself with where Toastmasters wants to go, or where you want to go, rather. So that's sort of what's in it. Like, that's the program. When I got started in Pathways, it was right at the very beginning when it was just rolling out. We didn't have these webinars. We didn't have people to go to for advice. We didn't have all the resources and the tools, and even the Toastmasters website wasn't nearly as useful as it is now. And so we had to learn a lot of it through trial and error. So as we said right at the very beginning, trying everything, just jump in, have a go, falling down, getting back up again. And so it's great now that we have such a bigger community of people that we can rely on. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. So we've gone through, why Pathways? What are the things that really work in the program compared to the traditional program? Certainly completing DTMs in both, I found I learned a lot more, a lot faster finishing a Pathways DTM than I did in the traditional. So we'll talk about the Pathways DTM a little bit later. So let's jump in now to how to get started, because we're going to talk about how to pick a path and how to pick the right path for you, because it can mean the difference between really enjoying the journey and getting the most out of your Pathways journey, and perhaps not getting as much out of it and not really enjoying it as much. Now, whenever I go grocery shopping, I always come down to the aisle, usually, let's say tuna, and there's just so much choice on the shelves there. You just sort of look at all these different options, all these different brands, and sometimes it can feel overwhelming. I don't know about you, you might know exactly what type of tuna you want to buy, but for me, it's always a choice. Do I take the lemon vinaigrette? Do I take the smoked one? So many options. And sometimes all of that choice can be difficult. It can make it harder to choose when we've got more to choose from. And Pathways is the same. We have 11 different paths, and they all do different things. They all focus on different areas, ranging from sort of really public speaking heavy topics at one end, all the way to very leadership heavy topics at the other. But when you break it down, you can break down the paths into smaller groups, and it will help members, new members, and yourself, if you haven't started already, to select a path that's going to help you the most. So I'm just going to jump in and share a little bit of a diagram that I've done up around how you can split the paths. So here we go. So had a little bit of a run through all of them, and having finished all 11 paths myself, just noting the similarities between some of them and breaking it down to different groups. So let's start first and foremost in the top left-hand corner. Public speaking skills. For those of our members that want to learn how to present in front of an audience, so whether it's a physical audience or an online audience like we're doing now, there are two paths that are going to be really helpful with that. So presentation mastery and engaging humor. Now, these paths both focus on different elements of public speaking skills. Engaging humor, as I said, well, as you can imagine, is all about learning humorous skills and how to be funny. Again, as an accountant, it didn't work very much for me, but hey, I gave it a go. Maybe one day we'll find a funny accountant. Maybe, when pigs fly, but who knows? So that's what these paths focus on, is the different public speaking skills and how to be able to get up in front of an audience and do that well. Each of these paths finish at a level 5 project where you have to deliver a keynote. So it's prepare to speak professionally. It's an 18 to 22 minute keynote style presentation. So for presentation mastery, can be sort of like a TED Talk style presentation, any sort of keynote that you want. For engaging humor, it's very much about a funny style of keynote. It's almost like an after dinner presentation where everyone's relaxed and they're just looking for a good time. So those are the public speaking skills. And if you've got members who are really wanting to develop that aspect of their communication skills, that's where to send them. Those are the two best paths for them to help them with that. Then we come along to the top right-hand side, so small project work. Now we have 3 parts here that really focus on working through the projects in this path, really focus on small projects. So being able to do certain things by yourself or with a small group of people. And it helps with, again, developing your own management skills, but also a little bit of interpersonal communication skills as well. So those three paths are leadership development, motivational strategies, and visionary communication. Leadership development is all about how we can grow other people and grow ourselves and our own leadership. Motivational strategies is about motivating a team, and the projects in this path focus on team building, motivating others, and just how to get people really having a good time and just working productively. And then we have visionary communication, which was the first path I ever did. And I found this really useful because it's all about being able to develop and communicate a vision. Now, that could be an organization's vision, can be your own. The level 5 project for this path is about developing your vision. And I found it quite useful because it had been a while since I'd done a lot of in-depth self-reflection. And the project forced me to sit down and really write out, well, what are my goals now? You know, where do I want to go in life? You know, being a funny accountant made the list, obviously, but there are different, it was a useful exercise, and it encouraged me to sort of think about, well, okay, this is where I want to go. And so for you as members, if that's something you're interested in, is being able to design, develop, and sell a vision, whether it's your own or someone else's, that's a great path to pick. So moving then down to our third box on the bottom left-hand side, we have leading teams. And these three paths are all about working with teams and using those interpersonal and management skills to really bump up how effective your people are. So dynamic leadership is all about, again, getting your team really working quite well and being a dynamic and an exciting, engaging leader yourself. Strategic relationships is all about interpersonal communication skills, networking, and how you can use those skills to, again, add value to other people and to your team. The level 3 project in this path is around networking. And now, as a grade A introvert myself, it was something I really hated, just talking to people. You wouldn't think about it looking at me now, but as an introvert, talking to other people is basically the worst thing in the world. So of course I joined Toastmasters, where we get surrounded by people all the time. But the point of this project, for instance, is you read up on the theory of networking, you then go out and it forces you to attend a networking event and practice those networking skills. So if you're an introvert like I am, or if you just want to get better at it, it's pushing you out of your comfort zone and really encouraging you to have a go at meeting strangers, having a conversation, trying to build up a bit of a rapport. And, you know, I'm not going to lie, the first time was a bit of a flop. You don't go from grade A introvert to being the life and soul of the party in one project, but there was progress. And so taking that experience back to my club and presenting about it, and then reflecting on what went well and what I would do differently next time has helped me to become a better networker. And that's one example of the project in that path. And then finally, we move across to team collaboration. And that is all about, as you can imagine, how we collaborate with other people and help our teams to work and mesh better together. So these are all very effective paths for members who might be wanting to develop their team leadership skills and just being able to be more effective in that management sort of space. Then finally, we come across to our fourth box in the bottom right-hand corner, holistic leadership. Now, these three paths focus on helping us to grow as more rounded leaders. And each path, each of the paths in this box culminates in the level 5 project, a high performance leadership project, where you bring together a team, you take on a project, and you basically go through this very involved process of reviewing your leadership skills. So for those of you who are familiar with the project in the traditional program, it's basically the same thing. But again, a useful project and a really involved project in and of itself. Effective coaching, as you can imagine, is all about coaching skills. And the projects in here focus on how to coach other people to success, whether it's in a professional sense, but also in a personal sense. I mean, anyone here who has children, sometimes they don't do what you tell them to do. And that can be a little bit challenging. Coaching skills can help with that. I haven't had anyone come back to me yet saying that effective coaching has made their children model citizens, but you know, we live in hope. Then we have innovative planning, which is for those people that want to develop more organizational skills. So again, if you're a little bit disorganized sometimes, if you just want to get your life a little bit more in order, innovative planning is around planning, goal setting, all of those things that make us more effective as leaders overall. but also on a small scale too. Sorry, someone muted me there. That's innovative planning. And then we come over to persuasive influence. And that project is all about developing persuasion, negotiation skills. And again, if you've got tiny little terrors running around, negotiation skills, definitely important to have. But in a professional context, in a personal context, in a social context, being able to negotiate with people and to develop mutually beneficial outcomes is a useful life skill. And so that's basically the 4 categories, at least that's how I've broken them up. And it's a way of just winnowing down that choice from 11 parts to saying, okay, well, what do I really want to work on? Let's reduce that choice to maybe 2 or 3 different options. And that can be really useful, just again, to help take that grocery aisle where you might be a little bit overwhelmed with all the different options and make that choice a lot simpler. So that's picking a path. And I'm just going to jump out of that right now. Actually, no, I won't. We'll move on to this section. So we're going to talk about, having talked about how to select paths and how to help our members and our new members select paths, we're going to jump into, again, some tips for clubs and particularly around that orientation process. So it starts, there's a process. There's always a process for someone to become a member of a Toastmasters club, and it starts well before they walk into the room. So it's identifying them as a target market, then becoming aware of Toastmasters, contacting the club, turning up as a guest, and then making that decision in these last 2 boxes to join up as a member. Now, Toastmasters, we're all very enthusiastic about Toastmasters. You know, whenever a guest walks into the room, we just want to share that love of the organization with them. But I'll let you know a little secret. When I'm talking to a guest, I never use the word pathways. I never mention it, because it's not what a guest wants to know. When a guest walks into our club, they only have one real question on their mind, which is Toastmasters going to help me achieve my goals, whatever those goals might be? And our job in that situation is to get them from maybe to yes. And if we get them to yes, they'll sign up and then we can talk through all the detail. But I remember the first time I walked into a Toastmasters club and I was almost immediately being bombarded by all of this detail. And you can imagine a guest walking in now. It's like, oh, hey, welcome to the club. You know, you should totally join the Toastmasters program. We've got this thing called Pathways, which is on Basecamp, and we've got all these 11 parts, and there's table topics and DTMs and jargon. It can be a little bit overwhelming. It just distracts from that core question of, as a guest, they just want to know what the Toastmasters program can do for them. And so we talk about the Toastmasters program then in broader terms, because it's something that's going to resonate more with our guests. So it's talking about the Toastmasters program offers you many different opportunities to develop skills in personal, professional, communication, leadership skills, regardless of what your goals are. You can tailor the program to what you want to learn. It's self-paced. You can access it anywhere you have an internet connection. And not only that, but the program is supported by a very rigorous peer feedback model where you receive feedback on how you're progressing, and also you receive mentoring as well. So it's talking about Toastmasters as an experience, as a total package. You know, Pathways is our education program, but it's still only one part of that broader experience of being a club member, where we do have the feedback, we do have the experiential learning, we do have the mentoring, and all of those things that make Toastmasters special, as opposed to going to an online course or reading a book or attending TED, any of those things. Toastmasters is based in that very fundamental, experiential, have a go, learn, receive feedback, get supported model. And that's important. Once they sign up as a member though, so once we've flipped our potential member over to a Toastmaster, then we can start talking about the detail. And this is where orientations are so much more important now than they ever used to be. I remember in some of the clubs in my district, historically, you'd sign a guest up as a member, and then basically they'd almost get forgotten about. It's like, cool, you know, let us know when your manuals arrive, we'll schedule you for a speech. And then they were basically left to their own devices. Whereas we can't do that anymore in Pathways. Orientation is important, not just to sit a new member down and talk through, here are the different paths, and let's talk about your goals and which path might be best suited to helping you achieve those goals, but also here's a run through of Basecamp. Here's how to jump in, use the system. Here are the different executives and what they do. Here is your mentor. Here's how to get started. Here's what all the different roles are. This is why we all clap like maniacs in meetings. It's just explaining all of those parts of being a member. That needs to happen, because there's a really awful statistic that I was told once by a region advisor, was that over 40% of our new members never renew. So they don't make it out past 6 months because they leave. And this process from when they join to the next renewals period is so important, because if they haven't been oriented, if they don't feel like they know what's going on and what the program is, and they don't have any goals set within that program, they're not going to stick around, because they're not getting value out of their membership. And all of us, or most of us here, I hope, we're all rusted on. Like we've made that decision. We know what Toastmasters can do for us. We don't need a lot of convincing. Our guests and our new members, they do still need convincing, and we need to make sure that we're doing a good job of setting them up for success so that they want to stay with us and continue on going forward. And you can go through this process not just with new members, but also with our existing and experienced members too, who might be a little bit hesitant about getting started on pathways. It's going through that same process. You know, what are your goals now? You know, maybe you've got more social goals. Maybe you just want to keep yourself mentally active. Maybe you want to just jump in and develop your skills speaking in front of other people. Whatever those skills are, or again, leadership skills. I want to develop mentoring skills. I want to be able to pass on my knowledge to other people. Whatever those goals are, it's sitting down with every member on a regular basis and matching those up to the Pathways program. Which brings us into this next section over here. Because one of the ways that we can help improve engagement with the program and to encourage more members to get involved is to help join the dots, particularly for our more experienced members who are familiar with the old manuals, the Common Communicator, all of those things, and where those connect to Pathways. Because again, pretty much everything we do in Toastmasters, all the speeches that we give, all the roles that we take on, they fit within Pathways somewhere. The challenge or the trick is just knowing where that all fits. And so these documents will get shared around, so don't feel like you need to scribble everything down. But I'm just going to go through at a high level. So many times, and again, in my clubs, sometimes we just have a speaker pull out at the last minute. And sometimes just, okay, cool, there's a speech I prepared earlier, going to get up, deliver it so we don't have a hole in the program. Now, depending on what that type of speech is, there's so many different projects that you could connect that to. So whether it's level 1 projects, level 3 projects, level 4 or beyond, there are many different projects scattered throughout the different paths that allow you to not just gain credit for the speech that you're delivering, but learn how to do it better. Because it's not just saying, cool, I've given this speech, I'm going to market it off against this project, and that's just a tick in the box. Toastmasters is all about learning. And so I was like, cool, I'm giving this speech, it's got a storytelling element to it. I'm going to pull out the storytelling project and have a read through that material and find out just maybe some tips or tricks on how I can make my storytelling even better, so that when I go into that club and deliver that speech, it's going to be more effective, and then I can receive a comprehensive and effective evaluation because it's connected to a project and to learning objectives, and not just, oh, great speech, I don't know what you were trying to do with it, but great speech. So that's on the speech side of things. If we keep moving through, again, if you're doing, if there are leadership roles, if you're talking about projects that you've done, and in clubs and in districts, we have many projects going on, social media, setting up web pages, high performance leadership, again, anything like that, there are opportunities to connect those to Pathways projects, particularly in those level 4, level 5 levels. And then we start moving into club roles. So Topics Master is a role that we have in pretty much every club, but it also fits a Pathways project. So if you've got a member in your club being Topics Master, get them to pull out active listening in level 3, because that is literally the project, be Topics Master. And if you do that, it'll help them be more effective at developing their listening skills. But again, they're working through the program and they're receiving credit for what they're doing in Pathways. Then we come down to some of the bigger stuff. So if you are a club or a district officer, guess what? There's a Pathways project for that. Level 5, leading in your volunteer organization, every member has access to that. And again, it's not just about getting credit for the work that you're doing or the role that you're serving in, but the project actually has some really cool stuff. Like if you read through the material on how to lead better in a volunteer organization, it will make you more effective, not just as a Toastmasters leader, but as a leader generally as well. So I encourage everyone, if you're in a leadership role this year, pull out that project, start working on it, because it will help you do your job even better. And then again, if we're attending events, we have that fearsome networking project going on. If you're hosting a Zoom meeting, we have level 4, manage online meetings. And because so many of our clubs are still meeting online, there's so many opportunities for members to work on that project and to develop their online meeting management skills. And then club educational sessions, contest share. Again, there are lots of projects to match this all up to. And that's the key. So as I said, it's all about learning how to connect what we're doing to the Pathways program, because it means that we can develop better skills and learn more how to do those roles more effectively. But it also means that, again, we're working through the program. And we'll get to that point in time. In the traditional program previously, all of our experienced members knew the program basically back to front. We could connect everything to a project because we knew about it. Like we knew how it all worked. Over time, we're going to move to that point. So if you don't feel 100% confident of where everything lives in Pathways yet, that's okay. Just keep learning, keep working your way through it. So we're going to jump quickly then into the resources that are available, just talk about those briefly, and then we'll move on to the Pathways DTM and the Mentor program, and then wrap up into the Q&A. So there are lots of different resources out there. So the Toastmasters website, the Pathways page on that now has grown substantially. There's a lot more detail around each of the paths and what projects are in them. On Facebook, the Pathways discussion group is a hugely useful resource. If you post a Pathways question in there, you're going to get an answer within 24 hours, almost definitely a lot less, because there's so many members in there just helping each other out. And then again, you've got videos, you've got resources, documents that members around the world have created to just help ease that process of people understanding the program. So whatever it is, even if you type into YouTube, Pathways explained, or just whatever it is that you've got a question about, there's almost definitely a presentation in there. So jump in and use those resources, because there's so much support out there. And as Toastmasters members, we're all about helping each other out, whatever our goals are. So let's now have a look then at the mentoring program and the DTM, because these are two of my favorite parts of Pathways, because they are so rich in potential learning opportunities. So if I jump in and have a look, let's pull up our mentor program. Now, the mentor program activates for everyone once you finish level 2. So when you finish that level 2, this will pop up in your suggested project. And so this is a little flow chart just to explain how it all works. Now, there are 3 projects in the mentor program. So the first one is about preparing to mentor and learning about your abilities as a mentor, your expertise, your parameters, your communication style. Because so many times, certainly in the traditional program, what we found was that the resources told us, this is what mentoring is, this is why it's important, and now go figure it out for yourself. And we ended up with people being sort of 2 people just being put together and sort of expecting magic to happen. And a lot of the time it didn't really happen because there wasn't a process around how we connected mentors and proteges. This project is designed to help resolve some of that by encouraging the potential mentors to reflect on what kind of mentor they want to be and what they can offer and what their boundaries are, what their style is, so that they can be matched more effectively to a protege. From there, we jump into the second part, the mentoring project, which is where we have a practical go at mentoring. So working with a protege to complete a project. Depending on the protege, it could be a level 1 project. If you're a new mentor, you might mentor another member through the icebreaker. But if you're an experienced member, you might mentor another member through a level 4 or level 5 project because you've been there, done that. That's fine, it's flexible. And then from there, you come back and present about your experience and what you learned. And then we have the advanced mentoring project, which was one of my favorites because it's all about mentoring another person, can be a Toastmaster, can be someone else, for a period of 6 months. So it's an extended mentoring assignment. And the powerful thing about this is it really gives us an opportunity, and there's so many tools and resources and templates to back this one up, to sit down with someone, to work with them on what their goals are, to develop an action plan, and then to work with them through that action plan, to keep checking in with them, supporting them, helping them close the gap until eventually they achieve whatever their mentoring goal is. Now that's really powerful stuff. It's something, again, that makes Toastmasters such a powerful organization, is just that mentoring ability. And you can take that skill out into the world and use that. So I really encourage everyone, if you haven't jumped into the mentoring program yet, once you hit level 2, jump in, have a go. because that's going to teach you so much. Let's bump over now to the DTM, because we have a lot of DTMs from previous programs, but there's still not a huge amount of knowledge out there about what the DTM looks like in the new program. So I'm going to go through that in a little bit, just go through those different sections and explain that, because what I would really love to challenge all of you to do is to strive towards this as one of your Toastmaster goals, is to eventually become a DTM in Pathways. So the first step to becoming a Pathways DTM is to join up as a member. So to everyone on this call today, congratulations, you've already finished the first step. You are a member of Toastmasters, you're already one step of the way there. Now the rest of the requirements can be done in any order. So depending on what opportunities come up, what roles come up, you can do whatever you like. We're going to talk through those very briefly. So the first part is the education component. In the old program, the traditional program, historically you'd finish a communication track and a leadership track, and a DTM would just kind of pop out at the end. Similar sort of process. So you finish level 1 to 5 in one path, then you finish level 1 to 5 in a second path, and then at that point there is a capstone, sort of a distinguished Toastmaster project that is designed to bring together the skills that you've learned through those two paths and apply them. So it's similar to a high performance leadership, but slightly different. It's take the skills that you've learned from your two paths, bring it together into a project with a team and deliver it. It can be whatever you want. And it's really powerful stuff just to crystallize all of that learning that we've had along the way. The second part, serving as a club leader. Again, this was part of the traditional program, but this time it's 12 months, not 6. So whether you are a club officer in one role for 12 months, or you do 6 monthly terms and you just break it up, 12 months in total will provide another requirement towards your DTM. And again, if you've served as a club officer before and you haven't already put it towards a previous award, you can carry that across into Pathways. So for lots of you here who are repeat offenders when it comes to being club officers like I am, you've probably already got that credit lined up. So again, well done on another tick in the box. District leadership. So serving as a district officer for 12 months, that part hasn't changed. So whether you're an area director, division director, a trio member, a finance manager, public relations, or admin manager, serving in one of those roles for 12 months will fulfill this part of the DTM requirement. And again, if you've served in one of those roles before and you haven't put it towards an award, you can carry that across straight into your Pathways DTM. So again, another step on that journey to becoming a distinguished Toastmaster. And then we have these last two requirements. So the first part is around building the organization and bringing Toastmasters to more people. So if you serve as a club sponsor, so that is if you start up a new club, or if you coordinate a speechcraft or youth leadership course, successfully completing one of those requirements will be another item on your list to becoming a DTM. So it's all about bringing Toastmasters to more people, whether by starting a new club or just getting out and running one of our community-based programs. And then the final section is around not just growing the organization, but supporting the clubs and the members that we already have. So if you serve as a mentor to a new club or a coach to a struggling club and help them come back to be distinguished again, that's another requirement to becoming a distinguished Toastmaster. And so once you have all 5 of these components done, you basically become a Pathways DTM. So it is both as easy and as difficult as that, but it's a worthwhile goal to strive for. And I'll tell you why. A distinguished Toastmaster doesn't mean that you're going to be the best speaker, the best leader, the most confident person in the room. Now, that's not what it's about. But a DTM recognizes members who have, as we said in the song at the start, got in and had a go. They've involved themselves in many different elements of the Toastmasters program. They've jumped in, they've learned things, they've been exposed to new experiences, they've met people, they've developed their confidence and their skills. Being a distinguished Toastmaster is recognizing someone who has committed themselves to self-development, and that's what we're recognizing. So it is open to any member. You don't have to be the best speaker, you don't have to be the next world champion, you don't have to be the next president or prime minister or the next sports star, movie star, whatever it is. You can, whatever your goals are, any member can achieve a DTM. And I challenge all of you to work towards that, because you're probably a lot closer to it than you already think you are. So I'm going to wrap up this section then by simply coming back to our initial discussion, which is always the why. Why are you here? What is Toastmasters going to do for you? Hopefully, having looked through all of the different elements of Pathways and how it can achieve and help you achieve many different goals, you may have found a little bit more inspiration in terms of how pathways can help you get to where you want to go in Toastmasters and in life, because that's what we're here for. I'm always humbled, I think, to present in these ways, because what I find is that we never know who's going to walk into our clubs. Just the opportunity that we have as members to just impact ever so slightly on other people's lives is something really special. And we never know whether the next person to walk into our club might be the next Hollywood, actor. They might be the next Nobel Peace Prize winner. They might be the next civil rights leader. They might be the next sports superstar. Who knows? Perhaps the only thing they're waiting for, whether it's a member walking through the door or the members that we have now, maybe even someone here today could be one of those things, if Toastmasters helps them get there. So I always keep that in the back of my mind, that Toastmasters can help people get to all sorts of different interesting places in their life if they work the program. Like a gym, if you pay your money, sit back and do nothing, you're not going to get a lot out of it. Whereas if you jump in and apply yourself, you're going to gain so much more from the experience and end up in some really wonderful, wonderful places that you probably didn't expect. And so with that, I'm going to close with that thought that no matter what your goals in Toastmasters are, pathways can help you get there, and Toastmasters can help you get there if you apply yourself. So with that, I hope you have gained a lot from this presentation. I'm going to hand back now to our Pathways Chair, Jane. So over to you.
Thank you, distinguished Toastmaster Mark Snow, for that fantastic, informative presentation. Please join me in a big virtual round of applause for Mark. That was really fantastic. You really gave a perspective on pathways that we have not seen before, and I am forever grateful that you were able to join us. Some administrative things we want to take care of. I want to thank distinguished Toastmaster Glenisha has posted an evaluation in the chat box. I'd like to encourage all of you to click on the evaluation and be aware that the evaluation link will be available just for 24 hours. And we would like for you to get that evaluation done promptly. So we now have about 20 minutes that we can take questions. If you have questions, I want to invite you to raise your virtual hand. If you click on participants, you'll see there's a virtual hand, and we will call on you. We'll invite you to unmute and you can ask questions. And while we're waiting for people to do that, our chat monitors, have we had any questions come through in the chat box for Mark? I'm seeing a no. Okay. Okay, Verna Roberts. Andre, if you can maybe go ahead and unmute. Verna Roberts has a question, and maybe open up her camera.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, we can hear you. Question for DTM Snow.
Yes, I have just started my strategic relationships, and I want to get clarification on the level 1, mastering the fundamentals. They have icebreaker, they have evaluation and feedback, researching and presenting. Now I did an icebreaker, and then am I supposed to have someone to evaluate that, then make the corrections in a second speech? Are we doing these speeches twice? For the first time, we get the feedback, and then we do it another time? Are we doing that for each one of these speeches? That's really what I want to know.
Yep, no, good question. So first point, every speech in Toastmasters should be evaluated, because otherwise we're just embedding bad habits if we're not receiving feedback on it. So that's just a general fundamental thing. In terms of that particular project, You're right, it's something that we get a bit of confusion around because it's not as clearly spelled out, and it's slightly different to what we're used to. So level 1, you do an icebreaker, and then that's one speech and that's done. The evaluation and feedback project contains 2 separate speeches. So you do a speech on a topic of your choosing, you receive feedback on that speech, and your goal then is to take that feedback and apply that to another speech. So by the time you get to this stage, that's your 3rd speech in Toastmasters or in that path. It can be the same speech done over again. It can be a different speech. The key thing is to let your evaluator for that part 2 speech know what the feedback is that you were incorporating so they can keep an eye out for it. So it's, yeah, so it's basically icebreaker, evaluation speech part 1, evaluation speech part 2, then give an evaluation yourself, and then researching and presenting as a separate project again. So level 1 is 4 speeches and 1 evaluation. I hope that clarifies.
Yes, thank you so much. 4 speeches and
1 evaluation.
1 evaluation. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm seeing a couple of questions come through in the chat box. And what I see is, will the recording be made available for attendees? I believe I can take that one. Yes, it will be recorded and will be made available on our Toastmasters District 47 YouTube channel. We have a question: how can a VPE check the progress of the members in Pathways?
No, good question. So there is a special section of Basecamp specifically for presidents, VPs, and secretaries who are Basecamp managers. And they have the ability, they basically have admin rights, the ability to go through, check on members' progress. So I'm just going to jump quickly into the international website just to show you where that lives. So if you jump into Club Central, actually, no, we won't jump to Club Central. No, I'm not using it. Go to the Pathway start page. All right. Okay, here we go. So this is sort of the entry point to Pathways, the start page. If you're a president, a VP, or a secretary, you will have you'll have another button on this middle box here saying log in as Basecamp manager. And that's where you basically get in. You can track the progress of your members. You can approve levels that members have completed. You can, there's tutorials in there as well about how to do the different functions. So that's where all of that lives. I'm not a president or a VP or a secretary this year, so I don't have that option, but that's where you find it.
Thank you for that. And while the questions of that nature are coming through, I'd want to make a promotional announcement that your district pathways trainers are available and ready to train your club. And questions like that, we can match you up with a trainer who is a Basecamp manager who can take you through those details. If you need to request training, you can contact me by emailing pathways@toastmastersd47.org. Those requests go directly to me, and we will connect you with a Pathways trainer. I see a few questions coming through the chat box, so maybe one of our chat monitors come online? Either Barbara or Glenisha, maybe you can take a couple of the questions coming through in the chat box, because I'm not sure that I've gotten the whole string. Things have been moving.
Hi, yes. Good evening, everyone. Someone asked if you're an organizer / founder of a youth organization, will that count towards the DTM path requirement, or does it have to be a new organization?
So I guess just to clarify, is that a youth organization or just youth leadership? So I'll address both. So if you are the coordinator for a youth leadership course, which is a particular a specified Toastmasters program. If you run a youth leadership program and you are the coordinator, so not if you help out, but if you actually coordinate that course, that counts towards a Pathways DTM. In terms of so if you were going to found a youth organization, that doesn't count in itself towards a DTM project. Oh, sorry, it doesn't count towards a particular thing, but you could use that as a DTM project because the DTM project, and there's a number of other projects in Pathways too. So you have level 5 projects, level 4 projects, which might suit something like that. So if you were doing some sort of project-based activity, there are a number of projects, a number of Pathways projects where you could slot that in. And yeah, the DTM project would absolutely be one of them. So like I said, my friend back in the Philippines who used her DTM project to work on that women's organization, that women's shelter, that was an example of a DTM project that was designed to help other people. And so she built a team, worked with them, and that was really effective. So those are sort of the two different angles. So youth leadership is separate to another style of project, but both of them can be credited within Pathways.
Thank you. I see a question, and I also had a similar question. I'm going to tie one question from the chat into my own question. The question is from Dawn Tucker. She says, the DTM project is the one that has to be a service project, right? Is there a team and team paperwork? And what I would like to add to that is how do you submit? Like it seemed like a similar project where you do your assessment before and after. Is that assessment after this submission?
Good question. So the DTM project is, and the overview for it is effectively to, I'm just pulling up the description for it now. So it's basically to undertake a project that benefits an organization. So it can be Toastmasters, can be another, could be your workplace, could be a Rotary project. Now that we have a partnership with Rotary, you could get involved in taking charge of one of their projects and use that for your DTM project. So there's lots of flexibility there. And yes, so you need a team and there is paperwork involved. It's quite I quite like the project because there is a lot of, there's a lot of documentation, a lot of templates that sit behind it. So when you do get access to that project, it's really, really in depth and you're going to learn a lot. In terms of how to submit it, there is a form, there is an award form at the moment. Club Central doesn't quite handle Pathways DTMs very well, so there's just a PDF form that you need to fill out with all the different requirements and email that in. And yeah, that's how you get submitted. So send it into education program@toastmasters.org and they will process that and you will be a newly minted DTM. So good luck.
Thank you so much for that. Barbara, can you give us our next question from the chat?
Certainly. Thank you, Jane. Andy Byrne asked, how are the Pathways trainers organized? That's a good question, Andy. In our District 47, Pathways trainers are arranged in areas. So we have Area A trainers, Area B trainers, Area C trainers, and so on. So sometimes we swap out a little bit, and we work together and we cover all the clubs.
When you say A, B, and C, you're talking about the divisions, right?
Divisions. I'm sorry. I'm so bad with names, but yes, Division A, Division B, Division C. And we've tried to reach out to all of the clubs that need training. And we will, have Zoom, we'll travel.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. And Andy, if you have any other questions or specific requests, feel free to reach out to me and we will get those accommodated. Distinguished Toastmaster Glenisha, can you give us the next question from the chat box?
No problem. I'm just making sure that we got this one from Dawn Tucker. Okay. The DTM project is the one that has to be a service project, right? Is there a team and team paperwork? Did we get that one?
Yes, we did.
Okay. And Stephen Harwood said, what did you find to be the most challenging aspect of Pathways? To our speaker, Mark. No.
Yeah, good question. I think some of the elements of the DTM are more involved than others. So for instance, The club mentor, club coach is a more extended piece of work, in the same way as that if you choose to start a club or run a youth leadership course, that can take time. Or again, taking on a district leadership role for 12 months is a wonderful opportunity, but it provides you with it's 12 months of work. I think the biggest challenge is always just having a plan and being organized. I mean, I'm a compulsive planner, so whenever I decide that I'm working towards a goal, I sit down and I plot it out. Here's where I want to be, here's where I am now, and then I sort of track back. Here are the different steps and milestones that I need to, or the different tasks I need to do in order to make that work. I find having that sort of a plan is really useful in just achieving those goals. But whatever works for you. I mean, some people like to do vision boards, others are very spontaneous. Whatever works for you. I think it is just, it's knowing what you need to do and putting a plan in place to get there.
Barbara, could you give us our next question from the chat?
Yes, thank you, Jane. First, our next question is from Kate McClare, and she says, thank you for the presentation. And then she asks, do you have to have completed a Pathways path to be a mentor?
No, good question. And this is going to be part of the transition. So, I mean, anyone can be a mentor now. And particularly, as we're still relatively new into the Pathways world, we're not going to have a huge number of members yet who have finished level 2 and will have access to that Pathways mentoring material. But when you finish level 2 in whatever path you're working on, so if it's presentation mastery, leadership development, visionary communication, once you finish level 2, there'll be a little pop-up in your dashboard in Basecamp offering you the Pathways Mentor program. Just click on that and you'll be able to access the materials, and they are very useful, regardless of whether you're a mentor at that time or not. So yeah, that's how you access those materials, but anyone can be a mentor at any time. It really comes down to your club and who you've got available. But the goal in the longer term is that every mentor in a club will have worked their way through that program, because it's all about providing a little bit more structure, a little bit more knowledge and support for those mentors, so that you're not flying blind, but you actually know a bit more about what you're doing as a mentor.
Excellent. Glenisha, can we have the next question?
Oh, yes. The next question is from DTM Andy Burns. He had asked DTMs know how was the 3 DTMs and Toastmasters international program? How has the 3 DTMs and the Toastmasters program impacted your own work, in brackets business?
Oh, good question. So I actually have 6 DTMs. So I've finished 4 in the traditional program, 2 in Pathways, and I'm working on my 3rd in Pathways now. But when I first joined Toastmasters, I was very shy, very nervous, very anxious, very introverted. My first table topic was 10 seconds, and you had to, drag me up to get me to say anything at that time. That was just over 6 years ago. That was where I was then, and everything that I have, Toastmasters has helped me grow so much. I mean, I would not be where I am today, personally, professionally, socially even, without the confidence, without the skills, without the connections that I've made through Toastmasters. It is a really, really powerful program, a really transformational experience if you work it. And it's knowing what your goals are and how the different elements of the various opportunities in Toastmasters can help you achieve what it is that you're trying to grow. So yeah, the DTM, like I said, it forces you to get involved in many different elements. So for instance, as an introvert, it forced me to get involved in like working with other people, to lead teams, to be a district leader, to be a club leader. My first role was a VP public relations. And as a class A introvert, that is the complete opposite of what an introvert should be doing, is all this marketing stuff. But it pushed me out of my comfort zone, and it was a skill I needed to learn. So it's, with everything in Toastmasters, it is very much make it work for you. Know what that you want and make it work for you. When I started Toastmasters, I was a graduate out of university doing an entry-level role. I'm now the principal analyst for an entire government department, and I manage $7 billion worth of public money. which is a far cry from when I first started, just dealing with small numbers and small dollars. But that's all through Toastmasters. All of that growth, all of that self-confidence, all of that experience and the promotional opportunities has come through Toastmasters. So absolutely, the program works if you make it work.
Excellent, thank you. Barbara, our next question. Do we still have Barbara?
Next question. I recently finished my icebreaker, and this is from Nazima London. My second speech. Can it be on any topic I choose?
Yes.
Okay, Glenisha, can we go to the next question?
Okay, no problem. So I have a lot of private messages along with chat. Just making sure I'm not thinking of anyone.
No, that's all right.
Yeah.
I see one here. I'll take one from Royanne Neely Morrison. She said, are you saying that 2 different pathways would have to be completed to achieve a DTM in pathways?
Correct. So you would finish, for instance, you would finish level 5 in visionary communication and presentation mastery, which were the 2 that I did. And that's part of the requirement to completing a DTM. So that's about 28 projects, about 30 speeches, and quite a number of activities involved in that. So there are fewer speeches involved in the Pathways DTM compared to the traditional DTM, but there's more applied activity, there's more practical work. Because again, as I said right at the very beginning, Pathways is more about applying the skills that you're learning as you're going, rather than necessarily just talking about them, which is what I quite like about Pathways. It's very practical, it's very get stuck in, have a game, and yeah, learn along the way.
Okay, so thank you. Glenisha, can you give us the next question?
Yes, no problem. The next question is from Don Tucker. Can you suggest any orientation strategies for new members?
No, good question. There is actually a document on the Toastmasters International website, which actually provides quite a useful overview. It is called Orienting New Members. It is item number. Let me just find it because I do have it with me somewhere. It is a really useful document. I use it in my clubs all the time because it just goes through this simple process of sitting down and orienting. So it's item 1162D is the Orienting New Members document. It has been updated for Pathways, and it sort of works through that process of, so one, finding out your new members' goals, creating the mutual expectations of membership. So it's not just, here's what you want out of Toastmasters. It's also, here are your responsibilities as a member, the Toastmasters promise, contributing to the club environment, not just taking, but not giving. And then sort of explaining the whole, here's how the program works, here's who's who in the zoo, all of those sorts of things. So I find it's a quite effective process for just walking new members through Toastmasters and just introducing them to this organization that they've signed up to.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to take one final question that will be a quick one from Mr. Khan from India. He said, would there be a certificate of completion of this webinar also? I guess
that's probably a question for.
Okay, so I'm getting a no. So I'm getting a thumbs down.
Right.
So the answer to that one is no. Thank you. Okay, well, I want to thank everyone for your participation this evening. We have had some really great participation, and I would like to thank you all for your questions. Before we wrap up, I want to just acknowledge a few people. Before I get to our team tonight, who is currently on the screen, I just want to acknowledge a few more dignitaries in the room. Dawn Tucker, Program Quality Director, District 8. Jean May, Program Quality Director, District 48. And Antoinette Fox, our past District Director. So thank you all for being here this evening. I want to give a special thank you to our Pathways, part of our Pathways team who put on this program this evening, Distinguished Toastmaster Glenisha Albury, Toastmaster Lucas Calafell, Distinguished Toastmaster Barbara Kasser, Distinguished Toastmaster Andre Kelly, of course, Distinguished Toastmaster Mark Snow, and our own Program Quality Director, Distinguished Toastmaster Shakira Taylor. Thank you all for making this program a big success this evening. I want you all to keep your eyes and ears out for Education Series number 4, which will be happening on November 18th. Attract and retain the membership game. Our trainer will be our Division D Director, Distinguished Toastmaster Lois Margolin. Mark your calendar and tell your friends. Thank you all.